Hello everybody, I'm El Bristow and welcome back to Ellitopia Gaming, and you are watching Kerbal Space Program Not Live. Following on from our previous Not Live housekeeping episode, it became apparent that we had a few extra jobs that needed to be taken care of, so I thought I'd do a video on a few of those jobs. The first of those was the launching of another Trident IX satellite. This is going to be the Trident IXb. For our ongoing attempt to improve our satellite communication network, we need to put up a few more geosynchronous satellites. The Trident IX was a successful launch, so the Trident IXb was also a very straightforward launch to get a second Trident IX satellite into orbit. Now, if you remember, we are replacing our Trident VIII satellites. They were perfectly acceptable at first, but it quickly became apparent that the range of the satellite dishes that they included was just not good enough. So the Trident IX series was developed to improve that with much longer range communication dishes, as you will see here. We open one up to communicate with mission control, and we open up another dish to communicate with our existing Trident IX satellite. The third dish will be used to communicate with any active ship, although temporarily we use it to communicate with the Trident IXb because that satellite is currently still in orbit. Eventually that one will be decommissioned too, but for now it is still there, so we will continue to use it as part of our communication network. What you can see us doing here is setting up our geosynchronous orbit at 2,868 kilometers above the surface of Kerbin, which is the height necessary for a geosynchronous orbit, the same orbit as the other satellites that we have put into orbit already. So with our initial launch burn completed, we start a few little adjustment burns to make sure that our orbital period is in the right location. And then we start to calculate the maneuvers necessary to bring our satellite in synchronization with the other satellites that we already have launched. Now, we can't just burn straight away to a full geosynchronous orbit because the satellites would be out of sync. So we do a few adjustments. We have a bit of a play around to make sure that at the point that this new satellite reaches geosynchronous orbit, that our existing satellite will be at a decent angle to be able to relay the communications back to mission control. So with all those calculations done and our maneuvers set, we send our satellite up and we start our adjustment burn, and this is the burn that we calculated was necessary so that we could send the satellite on one further orbit and then burn again at the apoapsis to get the satellite into the full geosynchronous orbit. And you'll see this is what we are doing here. We are zipping forward, taking the satellite back round to the apoapsis after having done the adjustment burn, and then we are planning the maneuver to bring them in sync. And you will see that as we complete the burn, the target location of our existing Trident IX satellite is in just the perfect location to complete this communication network. So now all that will be needed is for us to launch a third Trident IX satellite, the Trident IXc, which will complete the 3 satellites that are needed for a full geosynchronous network. That will mean that no matter where we are in relation to Kerbin, we will be able to relay communication back to the Kerbal Space Center up to a range of 30 million kilometers, I believe, unless I've done my calculations wrong, but that should certainly, it might be 30,000 kilometers, but that should certainly be enough for us to relay communications from, for example, Duna, which was part of the issues that we had, which is why our Duna mission failed. We were not able to relay communications back so that the science was useful. What you can see us doing here is actually decommissioning the old satellites that are no longer useful. We kept them in orbit because they actually did serve a small purpose, certainly for close by launches, if those launches were out of sync with the geosynchronous network. But now that the geosynchronous network has been improved, these satellites are no longer needed. So we do some adjustment burns because these did have some fuel left on them, and you'll see that we are decommissioning these by bringing them in, and they burn up and explode in the Kerbal atmosphere thanks to the deadly Reentry mod that we are using. Now we also need to bring down the Trident VIII satellite, which is obviously what we do next. Trident IXb is going to stay in place for a little while, but the Trident VIII is no longer necessary because it was actually doing exactly the same job as the new Trident IX satellite. So now that Trident IX is in place, Trident VIII is completely unnecessary. So we do an adjustment burn again to bring the Trident IX out of, the Trident VIII out of service, and you can see that that is now entering the atmosphere. That is burning up, and I believe this one actually does make it through the atmosphere. It loses the solar panels that are attached to the side of it there, but the bulk of the satellite actually does make it through the atmosphere, which is quite impressive. But you can see that it does pick up quite a spin thanks to the Ferram Aerospace mod aerodynamics, and it splashes down, and that's the end of Trident VIII. Now the next job that we have is to try and decommission the old ComSat 3 satellite. Now this one doesn't have any fuel in it, so it is effectively debris. So I come up with an idea for us to build a probe that can serve as a debris collection system. And this is me building the craft that is going to be our debris collection craft. Now debris collection is quite tricky because obviously we have to actually rendezvous with the item of debris that we want to collect. So what you can see that I do here is I actually build a kind of a claw construction out of girders, which will be able to catch the ComSat 3 satellite and hopefully trap it so that we can bring it home. And you'll see that what I do is I basically build a pod that is capable of getting up into space so that we can grab the satellite, and then I actually add, as you will see in just a moment, some extendable ladders. And the idea behind those is that once we capture the actual satellite that we're trying to recover, or whatever item of debris we're trying to recover, we can deploy these ladders and they will hold it in place. And as you will see, that actually works quite well. The ladders are probably not the greatest way of doing this, but they certainly are a way of doing this. We have a very slow launch to get this thing into space, but it is a successful launch. We do manage to get this thing out of the atmosphere and into space. You can see as we're dumping off some fuel tanks here, we continue to burn, and actually getting an orbit is not too difficult with this craft. I've had enough experience now with the Ferram Aerospace to know how we need to do that. But you can see that we set up a burn which goes up and rendezvous with the ComSat 3 satellite, which is our target. It's not particularly a straightforward rendezvous. You can see there's some pretty complicated maneuvering going on here, but we do manage to get a rendezvous. So here we are burning to get our orbits in sync, and it doesn't take too much fuel. You can see we do get a fairly close, although quite glitchy display, we do get a fairly close rendezvous, and with a few adjustment burns you can see there the ComSat 3 satellite is only 2.7 kilometers away. It doesn't take us very much to negate any relative movement, and it then becomes very easy for us to effectively swallow the ComSat 3 satellite with this grabbing device. We pull up very gently with a few tweaks and adjustments with our RCS, and you will see in just a moment the ComSat 3 sinks nicely into that little cage that we built, and we deploy those ladders to hold it into place. We do still have to be careful, of course, because those ladders don't cover all the areas where the satellite could escape, but with a few tweaks and adjustments and a few little puffs of our RCS, we managed to get the ComSat 3 satellite into the center of that grabbing area. We open the docking port that we added just in case it helps, but actually it doesn't really make any difference whatsoever. But once we have it grabbed, we then start burning to reduce our orbit to push this ship back into the atmosphere of Kerbin, and that will burn up both the debris recovery craft and the satellites. And here you go, here they are burning up and exploding. Quite a few spectacular explosions on the way down. The thing kind of disintegrates until there's virtually nothing left. And there we go. That's the end of the ComSat 3 satellite. So we built quite a successful debris recovery craft. So there we go. That's all the work that we needed to do in this particular episode. Thank you for watching, guys. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And stay tuned for another episode which is coming up soon. I have been El Bristow. You have been watching Ellitopia Gaming and Kerbal Space Program Live. Thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. See you later.